stay on 8 points, which seems highly unlikely. Chetan Narula is here. Jamie Alter joins us on the show. We discussed the qualification scenario, not just for Pakistan, but for the other teams as well, guys. Though I've got to ask both of you, do you see, some big changes happening in that top four? Or do you think that's a straight up top four? I don't see anyone else sneaking in. Let's start with Chetan and then I'll come to Jamie.
Well, Neha, obviously, maybe as we have discussed, there are possibilities of a lot of permutations and combinations depending on the matchups, not only between the top four, but also, those who are chasing the top four and the teams that are in the top four. So, yeah, possibly. Mathematically, it's possible that somebody could just sneak in. Like I said earlier, it just depends on the matchups between the top four sides. Like South Africa has to play a couple of games, India and New Zealand this week. Australia is playing England. So from that perspective alone, it will decide, the number 4 spot, how many points are needed. Is it going to be 10? Is it going to be 12? Is it going to be 8? You never know because Afghanistan has to play Australia. So I think mathematically it's still possible, but given the form of the teams, given how they're performing, I don't think there's going to be any change. And as for Pakistan, you mentioned, yes, a small total to chase today, and they'll be hoping to be on 6 points. Yeah. But let's hold our horses. This is Pakistan. Let them chase this down.
That's right. We'll have to wait and watch out for this one because you don't know what might happen with this Pakistan side. Jamie, looking at the qualification scenarios, and we'll discuss them in details. Do you agree with Chetan as well that, everybody else behind the top four, they have a chance, but it's only mathematical? Do you see any changes in that equation in the top four? Unmute yourself, please.
Sorry. No, I actually don't, just because, like I said before, and I'll be harping on it, there's just not enough quality. It was very, very evident from before the tournament, to me at least, that 5 teams were in any serious contention. I'll go back to what I said about Sri Lanka. Yes, they managed to put together 2 wins, but the fact that Sri Lanka had to go to the qualifiers means that their one-day cricket was in very, very poor form. So they were never going to break into the top 6 in my book. I had Pakistan finishing 6th on a good day, and then of course it's wonderful if Afghanistan upset a few teams and make it spicy and Netherlands win a few matches, but beyond a logical 5, it was very, very tough for me to see anyone breaking in. And the only surprise in that top 5 is that it's Afghanistan, not England. But beyond that, right now, India, South Africa, New Zealand, Australia, unless New Zealand go on to just have a brain fade and lose their remaining 3 matches, then yes, one of Afghanistan and Sri Lanka could get in. Yeah. But I just don't see it happening because, like in many, many past IPL seasons, certain teams got so far ahead. And this is why this is the World Cup and not the IPL. They're not going to suddenly, lose matches and make it fun. They won't. India, like we discussed yesterday, they could be 11-0 in this World Cup. Australia, yes, 2 losses, but it's Australia. They've done exactly what all of us expected them to do. That is come back with 3 wins in a row, 4 wins in a row. They're going to be in the semifinals. South Africa have just broken so far ahead of all the other teams that it's impossible. Even if they lose, they've got 12 points. 12 points is going to get them. They have 10, sorry. They're going to be there. And then I said New Zealand are just so good. I don't see 2 losses in a row throwing it open. So I would love to see Pakistan put together 2 wins in a row. Afghanistan put 2 in a row. Sri Lanka put 2 in a row. But looking at who they're playing, can Afghanistan beat Australia? They can. Can they top that by beating South Africa? Unlikely. So, unfortunately, it's one of those World Cups where very evident who the top 4 are 10 days into the tournament.
Yeah, but that will not stop us from discussing what these other teams who are at the bottom of the table can do to make it to the top 4. Before that, let's get the match out of the way. Let's begin with that match and then we'll go back to the qualification scenario between Pakistan and Bangladesh. The match that is going on at the Eden Gardens in Kolkata. Having opted to bat, Bangladesh failed to make use of decent batting conditions, bowled out for 204 with only Muhammadullah scoring of 50. Shaheen Afridi started with a wicket maiden over and then added another wicket of Nazmul Hussain Shunter to make it 2 in 2 overs for him, leaving Bangladesh 6 for 2, which turned into 23 for 3 when Mushfiqur Rahim, promoted up the order, nicked one from Haris Rauf. Liton Das and Mahmudullah revived the innings but were not able to push on to the big scores. Das played a very loose shot to Iftikhar Ahmed on 45 and Mahmudullah was bowled for 56 by a terrific delivery from Afridi in the second spell. Only Shakib managed to stem the rot with 43 of 64, but he was cut off before his 50 as a short ball from Haris Rauf did the job. Pakistan's pacers rose to the occasion with each taking 3 wickets each. Now let's talk about how good Pakistan's bowling was. They needed to do this, Chetan, to restrict them to 204. Clearly, it was that first innings completely won by Pakistani bowlers, pacers, not the spinners.
Yes, for a change, I think all pacers stood up for Pakistan. I mean, Shaheen Afridi has been bowling decently well. He's not been the Shaheen Afridi that he's been talked about in the past. There have been obviously issues in the dressing room. From what I understand, he's also carrying some fitness issues as well. So all that aside, he's been picking wickets in this tournament, but at the same time, he's not had any support, and that has been one of the key reasons why Pakistan has struggled. Naseem Shah's injury had really pegged them back, but Haris Rauf, I was just reading a statistic today afternoon after our first show that bowlers who bowled in excess of 140 kilometers per hour on a consistent basis, they've been going at 6.5 and over in this tournament. And I think the first name on that list is Haris Rauf. So, his pace hasn't worked really. And then, the third pacer role that they have to change around quite a bit. Hassan Ali was not up to the mark. Wasim Jr., this is second game in the tournament. He's done decently well. So my point is today they all hunted as a group, which is what Pakistan would have liked them to do from the very beginning. And I think that really helped Shaheen and Pakistan as a whole. But I also have to give credit to Bangladesh's batting here. Without their batting failure, Pakistan would not have been, or Pakistan's pacers would not have been, going to experience such a good day in the field. I mean, that was an absolutely shocking batting performance. In the pre-show, I said, this is what I want to see, whether they can rise to the challenge of really having a good day with the bat, having that common aspiration of beating Pakistan. And from what we saw, that's not been the case for Bangladesh today.
Yeah, what were Bangladesh thinking? Some of the shots that you saw their batters play, Jamie, what they were trying to do in England, because you didn't need to do that. The way Liton Das got out, it's one thing that you want to set the pace. You want to give that impetus, but some of those shots are questionable. And Bangladesh would be really ruining their chance because this was a good batting wicket. And to get all out for 204, they know that it's going to be very difficult for them from here.
Look, again, it's very tough for me, having watched this Bangladesh team for so long, to be very positive about them. Why did they choose this match to suddenly do what we've been saying they should be doing 5 matches? Now you're sending in Mushfiqur at 4.
Yeah.
And you're sending in Mahmudullah at 5 and holding Shakib down to 6 or 7. What is going on? And this is why, if you ask me to give me one reason why Bangladesh have underperformed for 3 decades, it's just inconsistency in selection. Shakib should, on his stats, be batting at number 3. But you feel, okay, he's been around for so long. He's getting old. It's his last World Cup. Najmul Hussain Shanto is your future. They batted Najmul Shanto as an opener in the Asia Cup in 1 match. Then he comes at 3. Now you backed him for number 3, but you don't have a stable 4, 5, 6. I mean, we've discussed on this very show, why is Mahmudullah and Mushfiqur batting 5, 6? Today, of all matches, they send the guy at 4. If you've not batted at 4 and you're 37, it's not that easy to all of a sudden change gears and do something, right? Yes, Haris Rauf finally turned up and bowled a couple good overs in a row. But this just underlines more than any talent, they can never decide what to do. Shakib should have batted at 4. We discussed how he went home with personal trainer, personal coach, whatever you want to call it. Did it make a damn difference? No, because then he comes back and he bats at 6 or 7 or something, It's just very confusing. There was nothing in the track. like we discussed, 265, 280 should have been gotten there. And Das was all set. And Iftikhar Ahmed, the moment he started bowling, I'm like, they're still going to this guy. Does he look like, a potent bowler? And the guy pops up. And I think we all saw how long it took Das to finally pry himself from the crease. I think that just summed it up. A 45, a 56, and a 43, and then 0, 4, 5, 7. They're never going to win anything in their wildest dreams, this Bangladesh team.
Okay, what are you expecting from Pakistan now? Their bowling was, was what they wanted. With batting now, do you think that they'd want to, sort of not put pressure on themselves, finish this up quickly? You know what I mean? 204 can get tricky very quickly. 3 wickets down in the first 10 to 15 overs, you're suddenly wondering, oh my gosh, will we be able to chase this down?
Well, obviously, no team likes to be under pressure when chasing a tricky total. So Pakistan would be no different. They would want to have a stable start. They would want Babar Azam to come in and, if there's a loss of an early wicket, pacify the situation. I think they should borrow a template from, and I can't believe I'm saying this, how Afghanistan have been chasing in the last 2 games. Because, they've had one challenging total and one a subpar total. That was last evening. And what did they do? Their top 4 batsmen stayed calm, put up runs, put up partnerships. Because obviously the asking rate was less than 5 yesterday. Today it's just about 4. So it should not be a challenge for Pakistan. But then this is Pakistan cricket we are talking about. Maybe they think that third day is going boring today. So maybe they'll decide, okay, you know what, let's be 50 for 5 and then see if we can chase 200 down. I mean, they like to entertain us. Just to add on, though, to what JV said about Bangladesh's batting, I have to go back to, the whole situation between Tamim Iqbal and Shakib Al Hasan. Tamim came out in the press conference and said, I have been opening my entire life and suddenly they want to bat me in the middle order. And now it just comes to my mind that since the Asia Cup, you look at it, there's been constant shuffling, chopping and changing in that particular batting order. So who's really running the show? And is that the right way to run things? I mean, there's no doubt that Shakib is the captain there and he has a lot of say in the affairs of Bangladesh. But I think Mushfiqur is also in the power center in that team. So maybe the decisions that they are taking in terms of chopping and changing this batting lineup aren't really the best. We use the word or the phrase no smoke without fire. So there's no reason now to see that maybe Tamim Iqbal was right. Fitness issues aside, they really did want to mess about with his batting order, which, again, there can be different perspectives to it. But now that this is the way the World Cup has turned out for Bangladesh, I'm sure questions will be raised as to what Bangladesh have done.
You know what they need to do? They need to exchange notes, Babar Azam and Shakib Al Hasan, on how to figure this out.
Are you sure? Worst teams in the tournament, they need to exchange notes?
Yeah. Just to figure out how you can get the tournament to be any worse than it already is, by chopping and by changing, by the 2 boards not standing behind them, which is the case with Bangladesh as well. But let's come back to the scenarios. Let's talk about the qualification scenarios for the teams. And we've got to start with India. They are the pace setters at the top of the points table with 12 points, but still not guaranteed a semi-final place. 1 win in the next 3 matches. That's enough for India to qualify, because there are only 4 teams that can get to a maximum of 14 points. Now, even if India do not win a single game from here, they can still get through. But Afghanistan will have to lose 1 game for that. So it's interesting how much cushion India have given themselves in this stage of the tournament because of how they've started. Let's talk about what India's matches are now before we move to South Africa and to New Zealand and Australia. So India are next playing Sri Lanka, guys, and then they're playing South Africa and Netherlands. And we've talked about this. Out of the 3 games, Jamie, the trickiest is the one against South Africa, because in the way Sri Lanka have been playing, you feel like India is just going to steamroll them. And then, of course, there is the Netherlands, who India will fancy their chances in a big way against.
Exactly. And with Hardik Pandya not being around for at least 1 more match, it still remains somewhat tricky. But again, I think Sri Lanka with that depleted bowling attack should not be a problem for India, especially at the Wankhede. That's one ground like Kotla where they don't really need to worry about anything, given the batting form they have and the bowling form they have. I've already called out that if India bat first against Sri Lanka, and this is one of the reasons why I wanted to make it. Unfortunately, I won't. I think we're going to see a double hundred from one of India's batsmen at the Wankhede day after tomorrow against that Sri Lankan attack. Coming back to South Africa, we can hope that Pandya is fit, but even not, I'll still say that that gamble that they've taken is worth taking because would you rather have him come back for a match? Again, we're assuming they're going to beat Sri Lanka. What that gives you 14 points. You're in the semi-finals. Is it worth even risking Hardik Pandya, even if he's 99.9% against South Africa? I don't think so. Then you come to that Diwali match, which is against Netherlands. We've all been saying before a ball was bowled, by that time, India will easily be in the semi-finals. It's been a little easier than at least I personally expected. That's the match. If you want to give someone who's not got a match, I don't think anyone in the squad has not played. That's your match. If you feel like it, though knowing how this Indian team has been performing, they probably won't want to get complacent and rest anyone. Maybe a fast bowler here or there, because you want to go into that semi-final. It looks like it'll be Australia with your best team. So yes, South Africa, given how India's tournament has panned out, remains the biggest test. But the way India is playing, I mean, they could be the first team to stop South Africa racing away to 300 if they bat first. That's how good the bowling is.
And they are likely to become the first team to qualify for the semi-finals, and rightfully so. I mean, if there's one team right now, Chetan, that deserves to qualify straight away for the semi-finals because of the way they've played, it's India. So one more game against Sri Lanka, if they win that at the Wankhede, they are through. And they'll be the first team because tomorrow is what? New Zealand, South Africa? They still need 2 games to win to qualify. So in that sense, I mean, to be very sure of being there, because 14 is what is the figure that everybody wants to achieve, at least in the top 4. It's apt, right? If India are the team that qualify first for the semi-finals.
Yeah, no surprises would be there if India does qualify, and it would be fully deserved. The only unbeaten side, the best bowling attack, to my mind, even the best batting lineup in this tournament as well. So they've been probably not the best fielding unit, but I think they've done decently well in the field as well. It's been an all-round performance, an all-round dominant performance. I would want to see a similar performance against Sri Lanka and South Africa. 2 matches coming up quickly this week. So one more win for India should do it. And my only worry, and I'm not talking about qualification here, is, we've been talking about the absence of Hardik Pandya.
Yeah.
If you continue playing 3 paces, that could be an issue because you don't know what the situation with Hardik Pandya is. Is he coming back? Is he not coming back? If he doesn't come back, fingers crossed, I hope that doesn't happen. But if he doesn't come back, then in the semi-final and the final, you have to play your 3 best pacers. You have to play your 5 best bowlers. So do you want to play all 3 of them against Sri Lanka, against South Africa, against Netherlands? Or do you want to bring in Shardul and Ashwin at some point and say, okay, look, we need to rest one of these guys. We can't keep playing them.
Yeah.
Because we have 4 matches in the next 10 days, including the semi-final. So not 10 days, 14 days, including the semi-final. So my point here is India did not pick enough fast bowlers in their squad because they knew that Hardik and Shardul would double up as the 3rd pacer. But now they are having to play 3 fast bowlers every game. So that's my only concern in terms of fitness, in terms of being fresh for that knockout game, the semi-final at the Wankhede.
And that's a valid concern, Jamie, because, now they're in that position that in case Hardik Pandya comes just before the knockout games, what do? Do they straight away put him in? Or would they go in with this combination because it's been doing well for this team? That'll be also interesting to see, because Hardik Pandya coming back and coming into the side straight away in a knockout match can also be a problem.
Oh yes, it can be a problem because unfortunately, he's outstanding. He brings so much to this team, but he's one injury away from falling into the Washington Sundar Deepak Chahar category. Yes, it's instinctive, but each time he cannot. At some point, he's going to have to stop sticking his hand out in the follow through, because that's the two times we've had our hearts in our mouth is when he stuck his hand out and stuck his foot out. So given what he brings, he's going to unfortunately have to find a way to stay fit. And yes, when he's not around, the balance is totally thrown out of whack. But even if I would say, yes, you want him firing for the semi-final, but you need to see, because so far India are 6-0 without Hardik Pandya really having done much. He's not been that good with the ball. He's got a couple of key wickets here and there. He's not been tested with the bat. So I would say you need to play him in that match on the 12th against Netherlands just to see. You can hope and expect, but hope and expectations don't always win you World Cups. If he's fit for the South Africa match, play him. If he's not, it's okay. But don't think, we'll go and play him in the semi-final because it's Hardik Pandya. No, that would be the wrong approach. You will be on 14 points, I assume, by the time. It's Netherlands. They've been fantastic to watch, but India should smash Netherlands. It's a Chinnaswamy Stadium. Play him because you want him getting back into that groove of bowling, fielding, just being on the park. If he doesn't play the South Africa match, you're looking at two and a half weeks that he would have been out by the time he gets that match on the 12th. That's far too long to be out. I'm sure he's training his rear end off. I'm sure everyone the BCI has is attending to him and trying to get him back on the park. But I would want him playing the match against the Netherlands if he cannot make it on the 5th against South Africa.
Okay, but India do have an easy ride, at least all the way to those 9 matches that they complete in the group stages. They're already sitting pretty at the top of the table. They just need 1 win. What about South Africa? They are in the 2nd position on the points table with 10 points, and 2 wins should take them through. But even if they win 1, they do have the best net run rate. So in that tight scenario, on the points table, they will still make it through to the semi-finals. If they lose all the matches and New Zealand and Australia and Afghanistan go past that 10-point mark, then they are out. So let's take a look at, let's put that, the points table there, yes. So now, if you could just go to the top half, the top 4 with South Africa there. They're on 10 points, Chetan. And the matches that South Africa now have are against New Zealand, India and Afghanistan. They'll ideally want to win 2 games and be very comfortable. But New Zealand and India, and their first match, the New Zealand match is tomorrow. These 2 are going to be difficult customers for South Africa as well. So, if they do end up losing these 2, they could be in a lot of trouble.
Oh, yes, and I think, like I've mentioned before, the permutations and combinations, whenever the sides in the top 4 are playing each other, that's going to affect the top 4. There's no doubt about that. I also wanted to talk about New Zealand, but we'll come to that later. South Africa, they're playing New Zealand, then they're playing India, and then they're playing Afghanistan. The Afghanistan game is a banana skin game for them. They wouldn't want to be in a position where they lose both to New Zealand and to India, stay on 10 points. Their momentum has completely vanished, vaporized. And of course, losing 2 games, 2 big sides, depending on how they lose, that run rate is going to take a beating if they lose 2 games in a row. So potentially a banana skin game for South Africa if they lose these next 2 games, and which is why these 2 games become important, not just from a qualification perspective, but also because South Africa, at the end of the day, have to get past these 2 sides.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. They've already beaten Australia. Okay, we know they can do that on their day. Obviously, that was a very, very different Australian side. But still, they completely dominated that game, right? But these 2 sides, if we just look at the table right now, you have to beat New Zealand to win the World Cup, and you have to beat India to win the World Cup. There is no doubt about it. So from that perspective as well, along with the qualification, South Africa must do well in these 2 games. Look, we've talked about the fact that they are chokers or whether they are not chokers, but in that dressing room right now, they'll say, okay, you know what? So far, we are the 2nd best side in the tournament, despite losing to Netherlands. And if they had won that game, they would also be on 12 points. They would also be unbeaten. So they have been the 2nd best side in the tournament. And it's not just because they want to remove the choker stat. No, they are thinking about the trophy. They feel that they can win this trophy. So given the firepower they have in their middle order, and given the firepower they have in their bowling lineup. So from that perspective, I think these are two very, very important games for South Africa. And from a qualification perspective, they wouldn't want to leave it to the Afghanistan game, on banana skin game, because you know what, Afghanistan could beat Netherlands, then lose to Australia, and then go into the last game against South Africa, still needing 2 points to qualify if South Africa lose these two games. So, mathematics is going to keep alive this tournament.
No, I also think that you're right that, South Africa want to win against New Zealand in India, but it's easier said than done. And if they do end up losing one game out of these two, then they're going to be up against a resurgent, this fairy tale run, a team that's been undergoing that run. I mean, you look at Afghanistan right now, Jamie, their confidence is right up there, right? They genuinely believe they can beat any team in this tournament, and they've done so. I mean, we've talked about it, how good they've been. South Africa's problem is that they already have that choker stack that they deal with every time. Now, imagine them coming up against an Afghanistan side, and suddenly if there's a collapse in their batting order, or Afghanistan ends up building a big partnership right at the top, things could get very, very difficult for South Africa.
No, you're absolutely right, and you both raised valid points. Now, I will amplify that by saying, let's follow this narrative that you're discussing here, right? If that last match against Afghanistan, I don't know where it is, if that match turns into a must-win match, okay? So let's set it up, right? We talked about before the Pakistan South Africa match. It had been 24 years since South Africa had managed to beat Pakistan in a World Cup. It's the same 24-year jinx that they faced against New Zealand. The last time in a World Cup any South African team beat New Zealand was that 1999 World Cup. Since then, every time they've come up, they have been beaten and sometimes smashed by New Zealand, right? Two of those were knockout matches. One was the quarterfinal in 2011 when they choked. I've raised it before. Amla was batting like $1 million. Suddenly he under-edges the ball onto the keeper's toe. I think Slip goes and catches it. Then 2015 Auckland, I was there. I think Chetan was there as well. So you talk about bogey teams. Yes, Pakistan is their bogey team. Yeah. But why isn't no one talking about this bogey team, right? A team which always looks good on paper, if suddenly the doubts start to creep in, oh, hell, we've not beaten this. And I'm sure they're aware. It's been 24 years since they've beaten New Zealand. Let's assume New Zealand, after 2 losses, comes back, brings their A game. South Africa lose. And I think New Zealand will win this match tomorrow. Now they're up against the only unbeaten team. And Chetan talked about, the aura, the Colosseum that Lucknow was. Is Kolkata not going to be as intimidating? So South Africa could completely lose their wits and lose 2 matches. Then you come to the factor I'm talking about, the 2 South Africas playing this World Cup. Let's say, I think they might win one of here. Let's say they drop 2, they're stuck on 10, and now you're talking about that Afghanistan team which brings the magic, which brings the doubts, So it's not without the realm of, outside the realm of possibility to assume that South Africa could lose 3. But the cynic that I am when it comes to them, I think they've turned a corner, and I fully believe they will get to 12 points, which should be enough. I don't see them losing 3 in a row, but if it happens, I would not be surprised.
Okay, then let's move on. Let's move on to Australia and New Zealand. Both these teams have 10 points, and 2 wins will take them through, as only Afghanistan now, below them, can get to 12 points. Now, even if they win 1 game, they can still make it, given that teams below them, they've got lower net run rate, as you can see there. But Australia do have easier games to play than New Zealand. So it is going to get tricky for New Zealand as well. So what are Australia's games remaining? Australia are going to play England next. They're going to play Afghanistan, and they are going to play Bangladesh. Now, they'll fancy their chances against Bangladesh and Afghanistan. England, because of the rivalry they have, they'll think that, England would come back strong. But yes, New Zealand. So first, let's take a look at that. They're 4th behind New Zealand due to lower net run rate. And the 3 games, Chetan, for Australia are England, Afghanistan and Bangladesh. Given what we were just discussing about South Africa, they do have easier teams, in their next 3 games. whereas New Zealand have South Africa, Pakistan and Sri Lanka. So it could get tricky here.
Yeah, so let's talk about Australia first. You say that they have easier games. I mean, England is a banana skin game at the moment. You don't say that about defending champions. But it is a banana skin game. There's a rivalry there. There's this clip going around of Pat Cummins who's not feeling sorry. He can't control his smile really.
Yeah.
He said he's sad looking at how England. He just couldn't control his smile. I mean, hats off to him for not laughing his head off. But yeah, that's an important game, and that's on Saturday, the same day when New Zealand will be playing Pakistan. So that's a 4-pointer game. 4-pointer day really. A lot could change that day. I mean, that'll also be Pakistan's next game. Assuming they win today, they'll need a win on that day to keep things alive, keep things interesting. So Australia, and then obviously Australia are playing Afghanistan. So that's not an easy game either,
Yeah.
because Afghanistan have been the champion killers, and who's the next champion in line? 5-time champions. That's the biggest fish they can fry in this World Cup. So, yeah, I think, but the kind of form that Australia currently have, the kind of momentum that they have at this moment, I think they are the second best side, just based on form. They're the second best side in the tournament after India. I do believe that India will have to beat Australia at some point in this tournament to win the trophy, and that looks likely in the semi-final. So, relatively easier games. I mean, they will look to score those 2 points against Bangladesh, so they just need one victory against Afghanistan, and pretty much that seals their semi-final spot. Now coming to New Zealand, and I've been waiting for 10 minutes to say this, it's New Zealand who's going to decide the semi-final spots. If you just look at their games, South Africa, Pakistan, and
Sri Lanka.
And Sri Lanka is mathematically still not out as yet. Pakistan mathematically still not out as yet, especially if they get those 2 points today. And then South Africa. When the tournament, started and the schedule came out and I was planning my game, I saw and I underlined this New Zealand-South Africa game. And pre-tournament, I said on the show that, New Zealand obviously were my top 4. South Africa were my dark horses. And I underlined this game, New Zealand versus South Africa, as the game that will decide the semi-final, the 4th spot. But now it's changed, but I still think that it will determine a lot in terms of where teams finish in the top 4. South Africa wins and they'll finish second. South Africa wins tomorrow, they finish second. New Zealand wins tomorrow, they will finish second, because I believe that they are smart enough, have enough talent and ability, enough form to beat both Pakistan and Sri Lanka. So tomorrow's game, unfortunately, I'm not going to the game, but tomorrow's game is going to be brilliant, and I think New Zealand hold the key to this top 4 mathematical permutations and combinations that we are discussing.
Jamie, do you agree with Chetan in terms of, both these teams right now and the kind of matches they have lined up, that it's not going to be easy? Australia playing England, Afghanistan and Bangladesh. England, like Chetan said, the rivalry is there, but England, if there's one team they would want bragging rights on, I mean, they would say, listen, we beat you. That's Australia. Then Afghanistan, we know that is one team that is the most dangerous team right now in this tournament. It can beat any other team on a given day. Whereas for New Zealand, they've got South Africa, Pakistan and Sri Lanka. Who has an easier draw right now?
With all due respect to England, it's Australia. This England team is gone. This Bangladesh. Australia have 2 matches against the 2 worst teams in this tournament left. They're going to smash England. They're going to smash Bangladesh. Afghanistan, I think that match at the Wankhede, if I'm not mistaken, against Afghanistan.
Yes.
Good luck to Afghanistan stopping this Australian team from getting to 300. Australia, to my mind, have the easiest of it. They might even finish second the way it's going. Only because the more I was playing in my head while Chetan was talking, the more I was playing out my perception of South Africa being chokers. Suddenly, it would not surprise me if they ended up being down at 4th, because I look at that match against New Zealand. And Chetan's right, that match tomorrow might have a serious effect, It's a cracker of a match. We both, Chetan and I, have had the fortune of being at the last two World Cup matches between them. I remember that match
Oh,
at Edgbaston between these two teams 4 years ago. That was the match that confirmed that South Africa were out of it. Kane Williamson got a brilliant 100. They were chasing. And then Usse Pele 8 years ago, that all-time, I mean, unforgettable semi-final where a few blunders from South Africa and then McCullum. I remember McCullum walking out to hit Steyn for six, and he lost his shoe. The shoe was lying on the pitch. It just said, that even with one shoe, this New Zealand team had it. So I agree with Chetan. That match tomorrow is going to change it. And then they're coming up against a red hot India. Can you imagine if Shami, Bumrah, Siraj, all the bowlers continue doing what they do? Suddenly South Africa are two down and they're stuck on 10 points. But I'll go back to what I said. Australia are the ones who have the easiest three matches of anyone from here.
Okay, now let's talk about the team that we're all excited about. Afghanistan, they're fifth in the points table. They will need to win all three games. This is a straightforward thing. They'll need to win all three games and hope that at least one of South Africa, New Zealand, Australia finish below them, which is what we've been saying, which means that these teams need to lose, at least New Zealand and Australia need to lose two of their three games. Now, Afghanistan's net run rate, that's in the negative, which works against them if it comes down to tied points with any of the top four teams. But if there's one team right now that'll think that, come on, we can do this, that is Afghanistan. And I think everybody wants them to. That's one team nobody minds sneaking into the top four, Chetan, just because of what this story has been. But realistically, do you see them coming in the top four?
no, and I'm honestly, as much as I've cheered for Afghanistan, I don't want them to qualify for the semi-finals because, if they qualify for the semi-finals, they're not ready yet. Like I've said, they need a couple more batsmen, they need a couple more fast bowlers to become that world-beating side. I don't think they're quite ready yet. And overall, the tournament, has some sheen taken off it, whether it's the organizational issues, the administrative issues. Some of the games have been really bad. There have been very few close games. Semi-finals are a time when the best four sides in the competition are in the fray, and you get a lot of, and there's a higher chance of getting closer games in the two semis and the final, and it could change the entire complexion of the tournament, how we look back at this particular tournament. So I believe that Afghanistan, as good they have been, they're not there yet to challenge, say, India or Australia, Australia wouldn't make it if Afghanistan do, or South Africa wouldn't make it. So whoever they play, whether it's India or New Zealand or whoever it is in the semi-final, that team will have an easier ride. 2003 World Cup, India beat who? Kenya, I think, in the semi-final to get to the final. It took a lot of sheen off that particular tournament. So as good as Afghanistan have been, I don't think they are quite ready yet enough to challenge in the semi-finals. And I would want to see the best four sides in those semis. Give us a couple of close games. Just change the description around this tournament. I mean, Jamie talked about that South Africa, New Zealand semi-final in Auckland. I don't think Afghanistan are quite there yet because it takes a lot. It's not just about bat and ball. It takes a lot mentally to be in that position because there are a lot of ups and downs, a lot of ebbs and flows through just one game to just keep plugging in a semi-final or in a final. And I don't think Afghanistan are there yet. And I also just want to say, I can't believe in that wonderful semi-final, the thing that he remembers most is that shoe flying off McCullum.
Things he remembers.
I'll tell you why. And I said this in the press box there, and I said it in the press box at Edgbaston to any South African journalist who wanted to hear. Your analysis of South Africa after this World Cup could have been written back in Johannesburg and Cape Town. You didn't have to come here. I knew the outcome of that match, but for me, taking on and that.
No, so see, the thing is with that semi-final, and it just breaks my heart to say this because I've loved AB de Villiers as a batsman, and I think he was a very, very inspirational captain. That day, I mean, if Jamie remembers, he broke down in the post-match press conference.
Yeah.
AB de Villiers cried in the post-match press conference. Imagine a cricketer who's given so much. There were things happening pre-game because the way the selection policy works for South Africa, I don't want to bring skin color into this, but there were things that happened. There were selections made in that game because which affected the way South Africa played, and even then they came really close. It was a hell of a game, and I for once I really felt bad for South Africa the way they lost. Um,
Yeah.
they gave it their all, and I think they were playing with 10 or 9 players that day against 11, and not just 11. There were 30,000 Kiwi fans in that stadium, who were roaring. There was rain around. So yeah, I mean that was a hell of a game. I think one of the all-time great semi-finals. And like again, I just want to reiterate, Afghanistan not quite there yet to
Yeah.
challenge in that
You know
in
what?
that situation.
Also,
You know what? I'd like to disagree on that one. I think that if they do end up winning 3 games from here, yeah, they have every right to be in that top 4. If they do.
Mathematically, yes.
No, they do. If it doesn't go their way, it's a different thing. But if they win their next 3 games, they have every right to be there, and they should be there, because that's when the story gets even bigger and more beautiful, that they made it to the top 4. Given that there are 10 teams here and Afghanistan make it to the top 4, I think that will be the headline. So, but Jamie, I'm quickly, do you want to add to that? Because I have to move on to Sri Lanka, Pakistan and Netherlands.
no, I mean, I just want to add on what Chetan was saying. Kenya getting there, again, I'm not comparing it. I think Afghanistan have come a lot more, but Kenya getting there was the worst thing that could have happened to India, because they beat them and then all of a sudden they faced Australia. Had a tougher team come up against India, India would have had to play better. You don't want that happening, but yes, I get your point. Afghanistan are far better this time around than Kenya were 20 years ago.
Okay, let's move on then to Sri Lanka, Pakistan and Netherlands. Well, they need to win all their games and hope Australia, New Zealand, South Africa lose all their remaining games and Afghanistan lose at least one of their games. That is as simple as that. So a lot needs to go in their favor other than just winning all the games that they have left. And frankly, if there are teams that don't deserve to go in, I would think it's these teams at the bottom of the table. I'd still think that Afghanistan, for what they've done, and if they end up winning the 3 games, that they should really go in. And then the last one before I take final reactions is Bangladesh and England. Well, the scenario is simple. There are no ifs and buts. Just book an early flight home, because there's no chance in hell for them. That's what is the scenario with England and Bangladesh. Who would have thought that England would be tottering at the bottom of the table, Jamie? But clearly no chance there for even the others, Sri Lanka, Pakistan as well. And I feel like they've not played well enough.
They have not played well, and I hope this does not end up being the defining message from this World Cup. Nothing would please me more than to see Sri Lanka put together wins. But unfortunately, the standard of one-day cricket, this is why back in January I said India will have to really blow it to not win this World Cup. The standard of one-day cricket has slipped, and you're playing in India where like Bangladesh, that stat we were talking about, they've not played in India for 25 years, against India. There's just too many things stacked in favor of India, and there's not enough quality sides to come to India and win, not just against India, but to win against other teams. So yeah, I would love to see something change, but I don't think it will change in the top 4.
Okay, so Pakistan are 47 for no loss after 9 overs. You guys want to make predictions before we wrap this up so that I can take that up with you guys?
Yeah, Bangladesh to win, just because my predictions are mostly wrong. So I'll say Bangladesh to win.
Okay. Jamie?
No, Pakistan to win. No, wait. I want Pakistan to. If I want Pakistan to lose, what do I have to say?
You just have to say what you feel.
You said Pakistan will lose.
No, Pakistan will win. Yeah, so Pakistan will win. I think they have.
But Pakistan will win.
Yeah, they've got this covered. And let's come back tomorrow at 1 p.m. and talk about a Bangladesh win.
Okay. Jamie? The confidence and the faith that Chetan has in his predictions halfway through the tournament.
Pakistan to win by 8 wickets.
Okay. I'll pick that up tomorrow. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us. Chetan Nirula and Jamie Alter. We're completely out of time. That's it on News 9 Live. To subscribe to us. For now, goodbye. Thanks for watching.
literally every